Good morning, guys. Just want to let you know that I'm doing this at work because I forgot I had a tattoo appointment this evening after work, so I didn't want to do this late like I did last time. So I'm going to try to record this at work, and you're going to hear some noises in the background, and so just ignore them. So this is my trade, my second trade today. I actually went into Tesla earlier before this, but I wanted to actually do a recorded trade since I haven't done it in a while, and it looked like my internet was working. I did detail that in my blog. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually looking at Google. I'm actually watching Google and Tesla. I'm trying to look for an entry point. I was thinking about entering Google because I already traded Tesla earlier that morning, but I wasn't as sure with Google as I was with Tesla. Google had an upgrade also in the morning, but they haven't. They've been dropping since that upgrade. So I knew at some point they would be going up, but I didn't know. I wanted to get in and out as fast as possible, and Tesla seemed to be moving a lot better and had a little bit more volume. So I decided on going back into Tesla. So I'm watching it right now, and it looks like the next candle is going to be confirmation. So what I did was I just cleared out my markings, and I'm making new markings now. The first one is the what I'm seeing as support for just that minute, and now I'm switching over to Tesla on my options so I can kind of see and gauge how much I want to spend. And I'm looking at weeklies right now because of the cost and how much and my cost and my account, because my account is lower because of I also detailed that in the blog. So anyway, so now I adjusted the price so that it's a little bit cheaper than what the actual ask was, and I was almost going to cancel it, and it ended up filling. And the reason why I was going to cancel it is because of that red candle. But I opened at like a $7 loss, which is not bad considering sometimes you can buy in at the ask and be at an immediate $50 to $100 loss, especially with Tesla, which is expensive. And I'm looking at Google too. It's actually a good thing I didn't even enter close to there because it dropped considerably after that. So now I'm adjusting my chart so that it's only Tesla, and then I am looking at my profits right now, which we're right about $50, and that's my earlier trade was at 250. I actually moved that to my finished area so that way I don't have to look at it and it doesn't get confusing. So it looks like it's doing okay right now, but there's also the resistance that it's going to come up on, and so if it doesn't break that, it could end up being going back down. So right now I'm just waiting for it to hit $100 profit, and then once it hits $100, I'll set my first trailing stop loss. Unfortunately, that did not happen during this run. So I'm just going back and forth and checking. 67.50 is where it's at now. The 255 is the profit I made off the earlier Tesla trade. Unfortunately, on the trade tab, you can't actually move that out of the way, or at least I don't know if there's a way you can do that. If someone does know of a way to do that, I'd be happy to hear you out. And then I'm double checking the news to make sure nothing came up that could potentially be bad for Tesla, but I am showing you that it did get an upgrade to $800 a share from 530, which is huge, a huge raise. So at this point, I think it starts trading sideways for a while, and I like showing my full trade because it kind of shows you what else I'm doing while I'm actually waiting for the trade to make a move. And so what I'm doing now is I'm actually planning. I'll be making some changes to the chart here in a few minutes. So we're at $5 profit now. We've lost most of our profits because of the move down, which is fine. So one of the things I didn't do, which I will be doing later during this trade, is going back to my spreadsheet and inputting the option cost so that I know where my stop limit, my mental stop loss is for a losing trade. I'd actually originally not planned to trade this morning at all. I was actually planning on trading this afternoon. I kind of wanted to see how the new setup with the Wi-Fi external Wi-Fi card I got, to see how that was going to work. Yesterday I used it at work, even though the market was closed. I used it all day at work to see how kind of gauge if it was going to be okay or not, and it did disconnect at one point. So this morning I did a little bit of searching on the internet and decided to have both my Wi-Fi's on at the same time, and that's the internal card and the external one. And so my thought process is, if one of them disconnects, hopefully the other one stays connected, and will allow me to continue trading or to continue watching my position. Last week and the week before, I had some bad weeks. Maybe it was just last week. Maybe, yeah, I think it was just last week. I had a bad week just because there's such a lag on my system, and I didn't realize this at first. And there was a couple of times apparently it had completely stopped bringing in information at all, and I didn't notice that. And so I was actually maybe a couple, few minutes behind where the actual trading was going on, and so I lost money almost every day last week. But it wasn't much, so I decided that this was going to be my new setup, and I wasn't going to trade anymore unless I can find a solution to fix it. So what I'm doing now is I'm switching over to a 3 chart view, and I'll change it to 3 separate times. So the first one is your typical, and takes me a few minutes. I have this actually set up on I have a template. I don't know why I didn't just switch over to the template. But the first view is a 1 day 1 minute. The second one, I have it as a 1 day 3 minute, but I change it to a 1 day 5 minute. And then this last one, I change it to a 1 day 15 minute. And then once all those are set, I can actually see what the actual direction Tesla is moving. And now I'm just kind of adjusting things to kind of make it easy for myself to see and for y'all to see. So in all 3 charts, you can see that it's on a downward trend because of the red, obviously the red candle. And at this point, it looks like it's about to break support. But I don't count breaking support or breaking resistance unless there's a full candle that actually goes. Not even a full candle. Not unless if it's only a wick, then I don't count it as breaking. And I've kept this rule pretty much the whole time I've been trading, and it's worked for me pretty well so far. So I'm going to stick with that. So we're at about $100 loss right now, $92.50. And I think at this point I actually go and and I go back to my options calculator spreadsheet, which is on one of my other posts, and you can download it if you need to. And I don't realize that I'm actually on the stocks tab until now. And so I switch over to options, go to Tesla, and put the actual option cost, and I can see that my mental stop loss is at 29.325, which it's not even close to being right now. So you see that there's a candle. The candle doesn't actually, like, it breaks the support line, but it's only a wick, and so I don't really count that as breaking support. And you can see my support and resistance lines. I don't actually use the wick of the candles. I just use the solid body of the candles as my support and resistance. And like I said, I've used this for a while now, and it seems to be working. So I'm just going to stick with it. I'm actually adjusting it down just a little bit because that little bit of body that's sticking underneath it was bugging me a little bit. I don't know if you know this, but I have OCD, and so just little stupid things like that sometimes bother me. Anyway, so now I think I'm changing this to a 1 day 5 minute here on the second chart. I do eventually change that. I'm not sure when I do it, but I do eventually change that. Right now I'm just making sure that everything's running properly. I thought there was a bit of a stagger there or a bit of a delay, but it seemed to be okay. I also have my other laptop connected to my TV that's sitting on my desk, and that actually was still going, so I could actually see what position I'm in. And now I'm just checking the price, and I'll do that quite a bit. I'll just switch back and forth between the 2 tabs to see where the price is. I need to know when I'm going to set my trailing stop loss, and so I try to always keep track of where I'm at as far as, and I'm looking at volume right now. I'm putting out volume, and it seems to be trading. It'll trade in this little channel. It's like this tiny little channel of support and resistance for a little bit, and then eventually it will start to make a move. There it is. That's when I changed it to 1 minute, 1 day, 5 minute. And the reason why I do that is actually one of the other traders I talk to on a regular basis. I have a lot of respect for him, and he's one of the guys that's really helped me elevate my trading. He uses 1, 5, and 15. I was using 1, 3, and 12. I'm very conservative when it comes to things. Well, most trading anyway, and money. And so I've been just testing different time frames, and this is the first time I've actually used 1, 5, and 15. Luckily, this trade wasn't as long as the last one. The last video I did, a live trade, it ended up being almost an hour long, I think it was. This one's less than half an hour, so that actually worked out pretty good. The first trade this morning, I didn't want to record because I didn't know if I was going to trade it. And once I finally decided to trade, I wasn't going to waste time turning on my recorder because it's about 4 or 5 clicks, which isn't much, but when you're trading, that's a waste time. And when you waste time, you don't always enter where you want to enter. So I decided just to hold off on recording the first trade. And this trade ended up being a pretty good trade. Even though it's a little bit long, it still ended up being a good trade. Now I'm just double checking, making sure there's no new news that might sway the price the opposite direction of where I think it's going to go. I mean, the upgrade was a huge upgrade, so it's been on a bullish run since pre-market, and there was no reason to think that it was going to go in the other direction unless some other news came out. So at this point, I think I'm actually in a little bit of profit, but I usually don't set a trailing stop loss until at least it hits $100 profit. I'm also watching the 15-minute because that first candle, the first 15-minute candle, it's just all green. And the second candle, which is red right now, I think in a couple of minutes it ends up turning green also, which means that it's still heading up, which is it's just another nice indicator to know that you're actually holding a decent trade. So now I'm waiting to see if it's going to break resistance. And like I said, a candle wick doesn't count for me. So right now it just hit resistance and bounced back off of it. But I wanted to zoom in a little bit so you could see it a little bit better. That noise there is what the noise you hear when they are moving pipe. It it goes from station to station where people weld and inspect the pipe, and as that noise, okay, there. So that's actually for me breaking resistance. So now I'm actually changing my resistance line a little bit. Okay, so it looks like it's moved down, but I'm still in profit, which is good. So I'm actually setting that yellow line is actually the line I set to as like my break even line, and that changes. So the break even line changes when you're trading options because once it drops down, when an option price drops down and the candle drops down, your delta changes. So your delta, like let's say you started at a 50 delta when you bought in, if the price goes down from there, your delta starts dropping from there. So it goes under 50. So when it starts going back up, in order to get back to the original break even line, it actually has to move further up than when you started because the delta starts slowly increasing. And the same thing in the opposite direction. If it goes up first and then it starts coming down, you will reach your break even line will be above what your original start point was. And that's just the way that it works because delta is always changing. So just because you bought in a certain price doesn't mean that's exactly where your break even line is, depending on which way you go up or down. So it's just a reference line for me. It doesn't actually mean that that's exactly the moment that you break even. It's just something to kind of give me a gauge of where I am in respect to zero. So that way I'm not changing the tabs to the trade tab to see where my price is because I kind of know that if it's close to that yellow line, I'm close to zero. So there's no point in switching over to the other tab to see what my actual profits are. Now I'm actually at the point now where it's actually moving up. So now I see that okay, well it's at $100. So now I want to switch it to a trail stop limit. I do a 5%, and it's a negative 5%, and then you hit confirm, and then you have a trail stop limit. And actually, I turn it off immediately because it immediately drops $60, and I'm like, okay, that's I like when I set the trail stop limit, I like it for to be at 100, and I like it for to stay at 100 for a bit. If it immediately drops, there's no point in doing that because you could just lose everything and then get stopped out with either no profit or a negative or a loss. And I don't like doing that. So I'll wait again. It's been a while. I mean, I haven't had any good trades in a while for over a week now, and so I'm a little antsy today. And this morning's trade was actually really good for a $255 profit. So I'd like to keep my profits today. So I'm kind of it's almost like learning how to trade again, even though it's only been a week. But it's still like I'm always nervous the first trade of every day or the first trade of the week, just because I don't know. It's just I don't know how to explain it. But at this point, like now, like tomorrow, I'll trade and I'll be a little bit. After my first trade, I'll be a little bit more like calm about it. But I always have a little bit of jitters before the market opens every day because there's always that sense of doubt where you're like, okay, well, is today the day where I lose all my money, or just today the day I found out that I've actually been lucky this whole time and I've not been like doing anything like the things that I've been doing have just whether I do them as a strategy or not. Maybe it's not a strategy. Maybe it's just luck. And the longer I trade, the less that less I feel that way. But it's going to take a couple more months before I'm really secure because I've been profitable for about 3 or 4 months now. But the last 2 months of when I've really been making some decent profits on my trades because that's when I started using that trailing stop loss. So it's just been kind of trading sideways again, and it's been trading in a very tight little channel. So usually when this happens, I actually watch out for something like this because it's something that I'm always interested. It's a precursor to a move, and whether that move is up or down, you don't know. But it's usually a precursor. It's almost like the Bollinger Bands. If anybody uses Bollinger Bands, when the Bollinger Bands gets really tight, it's right before a move, a move up or a move down. And it's the same thing here. I'm just not using Bollinger Bands. But this little channel it starts trading in, it starts trading in a tight channel, and then once that happens, it'll make a move. Sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes it takes a lot longer, but it always ends up being a precursor to a decent sized move. Okay, so it seems like it's starting to make a little move now, and which it is. And so at this point is when I just realize what's going on, and I go back over, and it's almost at 200. So I went ahead and set, instead of setting a 5% trailing stop loss, I went ahead and set it at 4 immediately. And just double checking and making sure I didn't make a mistake setting it at 4 right away, which I didn't. And so now it's just a matter of waiting. And once it's, the only thing I'm left at this point, the only thing I do is adjust my trailing stop loss. And once I do that, and the reason why I do that is the more expensive this thing gets, the more it's going to end up. So if you keep a 3% trailing stop loss and it hits $400 and then it drops, you lose almost $100 before the trailing stop loss gets triggered. And so so I don't like using a 3 if I'm at a really decent profit. So at this point here, I actually switched it to a 3% because it hit about, I think it hit about $300 at this point. It's 245. So, and then it starts dropping immediately. So now I'm kind of looking to see, do I need to adjust it back to a 4? But I decided to go ahead and just keep it the way it is, because the 3%, like I said, if it's trading between $20 to $50 up and down, you're fine. It's not going to do anything. So now I'm just keeping an eye on it. It hit $200. It went from $250 to $200, and it still hasn't triggered. So I'm still fine. So at this point, you see I put my cursor over that X constantly, and I'm just thinking, okay, if it drops dramatically, I'm canceling it, and I'm readjusting my trailing stop loss. But I don't think I ever have to at this point. I think the next move I make, and I'll talk about it here in a second. So now I'm just basically watching to make sure that the trade is covered, and then you also notice that I don't put my cursor over that X anymore. So at this point, I actually think, you know what, I'm going to leave it the way it is. And if it stops me out, I'll still have profit. But I'm not going to adjust it to a bigger trailing stop loss, because I want to keep what I've earned at this point. So even if it's only $100, that's fine. I'd rather keep the $100 and change it to a 4 and then find out later that it dropped enough where I lose all of my profits, which has happened before, and I learned that the hard way. So I'm just adjusting things to see if there's a better view. And I know that trailing stop loss thing is on top of some of the candles. And on the first chart, I'm actually trying to keep the candles away from that balloon, so that way you can see what's going on. So it hit a new high of 543.13, which is awesome. And I'm clearing out the actual resistance lines now, because I don't see the point in having them anymore, and I wanted you to be able to see exactly what's going on. So 543.50 is now its high, and then it just hit its newer high. So now here is where I decide I'm going to change it to a 2% and hit confirm and send. And now this is it. This is my final move. 2% trailing stop loss is my smallest one I'll put. I've done it to 1 before, and it immediately stops you out, and I was like, there's no point in doing that. So 2 is actually a nice little buffer. I'm at $300 profit right now, and so my plan is just to let it either go up more and just keep my trailing stop loss, or stop me out. And at this point, I don't adjust. I don't make any more adjustments. So whatever profits I make from here is what I make. And it just hit another high, and it just hit another high. and it just hit another high. Now I'm just watching to see where I'm at profit wise and enjoying the fact that I had a good morning because my Wi-Fi is working and I feel better about trading at work again. And there it goes again. So it's still moving up. And if you look back at the chart, you can see that where the big candle is, where it moved that big candle, where it moved outside of that channel it was trading at earlier that I was talking about, you can see the increase in volume at that minute, and it's quite a bit compared to what it was before. It usually happens when there's a move. There's a nice little pop in volume, and so now, I mean, it keeps hitting highs, and it's still trading, and it's still moving up. And you can also see on the 15-minute that every single candle is green. And it's the same with the 5-minute. You don't see that everything's green, but you do see that it's in a nice move. The sideways, the channel, when it was trading in the channel and it was trading sideways, you can see that there's green and red candles there. But on the 15-minute, you can actually see that it's been in a constant move up the whole day. Now, just to say, just because a company gets an upgrade, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be received this way that Tesla was received this morning. There are, most of the time it does work out that way. Like an upgrade or downgrade will move the stock exactly the way that you would logically think it should. But there are times, more often, there's been more than a couple times I know for sure that something gets a price upgrade and it doesn't move up at all when sometimes moves down. And it's all dependent on a few different things. Who gives it the upgrade? There's also other things that analysts, like just because it gets an upgrade, there are other underlying factors with the company that analysts look at that also affect whether they're going to buy or sell the stock. So just because it's an upgrade doesn't necessarily mean, it's just like earnings report. Just because a company has a good earnings report doesn't mean the stock's going to go up. There are other factors that affect it that aren't announced, and so there are many times when earnings reports come out and the stock price goes down. Or there are times where they don't meet their target, but they don't lose as much as they think they were originally thought to have they were going to lose, and so the price goes up. So there are it's that's the one thing about trading, is that there are no sure things on trading. And so trading on news is good, but having other indicators is also good, and then also having a plan to get out if things go the wrong way is also good. Is actually a necessity. It's actually what's kept me profitable this year, is knowing that I have an exit strategy. And there it goes, exit strategy. That's stopped me out. And I'm just showing you the whole chart from this morning. That was my first trade. The first run was my first trade, and that was just my second trade. Profit of $360. So today, total is $615 for today. So it's a good day back, and the Wi-Fi seems to be working, so I'm happy. So now I can trade and make more videos. So I hope that helps. I know that seeing things, I'm a very visual learner, and seeing things helps me a lot with trading.